Welcome back, Free from an Allergy community. I'm so excited to introduce this session. Courtney Roulston will be joining us. Now, if you don't know her, Courtney Roulston first rose to fame around after finishing as a finalist in Series 2 of MasterChef Australia 2010. Since 2011, Courtney has been working as the head chef at Sydney Swans AFL team, cooking for the players and working closely with the team dietitian. For the past decade, she has also proudly represented Coles supermarkets as an ambassador and has had the pleasure of immersing herself within various events, media, and catering jobs scattered throughout Australia. Having recently participated in MasterChef Season 12 All Stars Back to Win, you can also watch Courtney in Season 2 of the popular cooking series Farm to Fork, currently airing on Network 10. Now, today's session, we actually find out how Courtney spends her Christmas day, and she takes us through her vegan roast recipe, which is actually available in the content library. So if you haven't watched it, you can definitely watch it after this. But I'm excited to introduce Courtney.
Hi, Lauren. Thank you. That was quite the introduction. Thank you.
I was reading, I was like, she's good. I'm like, done a lot. This is very impressive.
It's just like the greatest hits list that we make people read out beforehand. But no, I'm really lucky. Been doing loads of different things in food for the last 10 years. So, which is great. I get lots of variety, lots of jobs with Coles, lots of jobs where there's allergies and we need to come up with creative things. So it's good. I've got fingers in pies all over the place, but it never gets boring and it's good. I think the best thing about cooking is having a big variety and a big bank of variety of recipes. So I love it. Love my job, love cooking, love eating, obviously. Love Christmas as well.
Oh, I know. And it's good because last time we actually spoke at our first virtual event, you were actually in isolation. So you had just come back from Melbourne and you're in quarantine in Sydney. So now it's actually nice to see you not in quarantine where you're not just having chicken all the time.
Yeah, no, I know chicken for 14 days. No, I'm back home in Coogee now. I feel like I've seen lots of people do the hotel quarantine though. I feel like a lot of people um, are willing to do it. I didn't find it too bad. Cooking got me through. But yeah, no, coming to you from home now, and we're only a couple of weeks away from Christmas, so we are gearing up for Christmas here, and yeah, we've put some lights up, and we're getting close to the big day.
I love it. And I see your little Christmas decorations too.
Yes, these are all from Coles, obviously. The little, how cute is this? The elf on the shelf. This guy
So
pops up everywhere. And look, even my Christmas lights are from Coles. The flowers are from Coles. Like Coles, I went there yesterday. They've got fresh Christmas trees out the front. My local Coles here in Randwick has a big flower display, so it's easy. Get everything in one shop. And yeah, you've got to. I think it's been a tricky year. You've got to. I think everyone is keen to celebrate Christmas because it's been a bit of a shocker of a year. So I think a good Christmas, some good food, and have a bit of fun is a good way to end the year.
definitely. And so we actually just popped up your pre-recorded video when you actually made a vegan roast. Now I know that it's in front of you. So yes, if you haven't
Yeah.
watched it yet, don't worry, it's available in the content library. It's not going anywhere. But I really want to talk about the recipe you have in front of you. The dish, it looks amazing. And I do have some questions here to talk about or to ask you, sorry. And the first one is, do you just want to explain what it is that you have, just in case some of our viewers have not actually seen the video yet?
Yeah, sure. So, I think Christmas is all about those centerpiece, items on the table. And I guess over the last years, whether anyone on here today is vegan by choice, or whether they can't eat dairy, or gluten-free, or they just want to include more vegetables in their diet, I've come up with a way of trying to make a vegan roast, a real centerpiece, impressive thing for the table. So what we've done is I've got a butternut pumpkin here, and you can do this with a regular kind of
School.
Japanese pumpkin or camp pumpkin. But all I've done on the video, we basically slice the pumpkin in half, scoop out all the seeds, scoop out some of the flesh that's in the neck of the pumpkin, and I've made a stuffing mixture, because what's Christmas without a stuffing mixture? Yeah, so the stuffing is based on, there's some quinoa in there, and I've also added in cranberries, diced mushrooms that we've cooked off, spices, cinnamon and cumin. Cranberries, did I mention that? I think what's Christmas without a cranberry as well.
You need some
Some
colour.
onion and some herbs. And you basically put that into the hollowed out pumpkin, tie it up with string, or you can wrap it in foil if you're not into tying things up with string. And then you just roast it for an hour, half an hour uncovered and then half an hour covered so it steams. And you get this beautiful stuffed, like sweet, jammy pumpkin flesh with a really delicious, spicy, earthy flavored stuffing in the middle. And it's something that you can put on the table that's going to rival a glazed ham or a whole turkey, or those kind of big ticket meat items. If you've got a vegan in your family, or you just want a really nice vegetarian side, I don't think anyone's going to feel like they're missing out on anything with a recipe like this. And I've made a little, there's loads of vegan sauces that I have, but I made a really quick tahini sauce with tahini, apple cider vinegar, maple syrup, some sea salt and some water. And just like you would with a gravy, I just drizzle that tahini dressing over. Because again, you've got to have some kind of gravy with it. And then just there's some parsley gone in it, so I just decorate it with some parsley. So that's it, nice and colourful. I'll bring that in. Oh, there we go. You guys are zooming in for me.
The other way? Just go to the other way?
There we go. I
There
should
we
be able
go.
to see it. But like, me and look, I can cook, but me and technology are not the greatest partners. But there we have it. So it's really delicious. You can eat it hot or cold. You can get it all prepared a couple of days before if you want to have the pumpkin stuffed and ready to roast and ready to go on the day.
It looks
But there we have it.
amazing.
That's my vegetarian roast of choice for Christmas
I love
2020.
that. So I'm guessing, so that's where you got your inspiration from, because I know that my sister is actually vegetarian, and for a short time she was actually vegan. And I know whenever we used to go to my nonna's for Christmas, she was always just sort of having your typical just roasted vegetables. And it was always just like, we would have this beautiful roast or something very Christmassy, and she would just be like, I would just have a salad, or I would just have the roast veggies. So like
Yeah,
you said, no
I
one
think
misses out.
yeah, and I think that's it. Look, if you are vegetarian, it's like I've catered vegetarian when I do jobs for years, and I think you can't get away with just putting a tomato sauce pasta out anymore or a tray of roast vegetables. It doesn't feel like they're included, and it feels like they're missing out a bit. So I think with this, it definitely feels like you're including everyone. It's something impressive, something good to put on their Instagram for their Christmas day. It's got all the flavors of Christmas. And as I said, it's a nice centerpiece, impressive, shiny pumpkin to put on your Christmas table. And I think that's what you want. You want everyone to feel included on the day, regardless of whether they've got an allergy or an intolerance or whether they're choosing not to eat meat. So yeah, I think this is a winner.
I definitely think so. Absolutely. Now, I do have another question. So, in
Yeah.
the stuffing, I know you used cranberries and you also used nuts. Now, if you don't like cranberries or you might have an allergy to nuts, I know they're two separate things, but would you recommend
Yeah.
any substitutes for either of them?
There's so many substitutes. Obviously, with nuts, my go-to substitute is seeds.
Yeah.
Often people that can't eat tree nuts are okay with seeds. So I would just replace it with some pepita or pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, or even sesame seeds could go in it. Or you can just leave the nuts out altogether. because we've got quinoa in there, it gives a nice kind of pop of texture, and the mushrooms are in there, which gives us kind of a softer, meatier texture. The
Mm.
nuts are really just adding texture in there. So either leave them out or just replace them with pumpkin or sunflower seeds. As for the cranberries, I don't know if people have been making their fruit cakes or their puddings at home already. But there's loads of other dried fruits or even fresh fruits that you could put in the stuffing. Um, things like sultanas or what are they, currants or dried apricots. If you didn't
Yeah.
like cranberries, could go in. I know my dad, when he does a stuffing for pork, he puts diced up apple or pear into his stuffing, so you could get some
Really?
sweetness through some fresh fruit, just cut up really small. Or again, you could just, if you're not into dried fruit, you could just leave it out altogether and add in some extra herbs, some sage or some thyme. But there's loads of options there. You're just wanting, for me, I think it's stuffing, it's nice to have something sweet in there. So whether it's a fresh fruit, apple or pear, or any of your dried fruits, everyone's got packets of dried mixed fruits or dried peaches or dried pears at home that you could put in.
Definitely. And I think it's good because you've got that sweetness and then it's all about the texture. So you've got that added bite, whether it be the sunflowers or whether it be the sunflower seeds, sorry, or whether it be the nuts. So it's that real texture piece as well because dried fruit's
Yeah,
quite sticky as well.
yeah. And look, I've mentioned in the video, I cooked quinoa for this recipe, but if you wanted to use black rice or brown rice or even white rice, there's loads of kind of pre-cooked rices you can get in the international aisle if you wanted to really speed up the recipe, or if you wanted a different texture in there. Black rice has a really sticky texture to it. So I love to give a recipe, but it's not set in stone. I even go rogue on my own recipes and change things around. So I think it's, as long as you, the mushrooms in there kind of hold it together and give that kind of meaty, earthy flavor. But then you can play around with the fruits, the spices, and even instead of the quinoa, you could put a black or a brown rice in there. Loads of options. I'm all about options for Christmas because everyone likes different things.
Everyone's taste and preferences are so different.
Exactly. And, everyone's been cooking from home this year, and you might have, like, I know myself from doing lots of cooking videos from home, I've got about 6 different shapes, half bags of pasta, I've got a quarter of a bag of risotto rice, I've got half a bag of black rice. And I think it's just about, even though it's Christmas and you want it to be special, you can still just use up whatever you've got at home, without spending a fortune as well. I think we don't often talk about budgets at Christmas, but I know lots of people this year will be on a budget. It's been a
Yeah,
tricky year. Lots of people have had their work cut down or their wages cut down. And a whole ham and turkey is getting up there in price, whereas vegetables, I think this pumpkin cost me $4.80 for a whole butternut pumpkin. So it's a little bit more economical as well, but still just as impressive.
definitely. And the good thing is there's substance. So it's like the quinoa or if you sub rice, they are quite cost effective ingredients, but they actually do
Yeah.
fill you up as well. So they leave you feeling
Yeah.
satisfied as opposed to, I'm really hungry 10 minutes later.
Yeah, yeah. And I would eat this any day of the week, but I'd certainly think it was impressive at Christmas, but I wouldn't feel like I was eating kind of a low budget meal either. I
Yeah.
think it's, the little bit of trick with the sauce and the presentation is where the wow is in this recipe.
Definitely. Now, a question I do have is what is your favorite thing to accompany this with? So I know you have your sauce, but do you have like a salad you would put with it or another dish that you think would match really nicely with it?
Yeah, look, I think, any magazine or Christmas ad that you've seen, you would know that the table is full. You don't just have one thing on the table at Christmas. There's loads of things. As I said, if people do eat meat, of course, this would go with roast chicken or your roast ham that's still all gluten free and dairy free as well. So this would sit nicely on a table, with prawns and ham and turkey and all of those things and a nice, really fresh green salad. But if you were wanting a strictly vegetarian Christmas table, there's loads of things. I would serve a really nice roasted cauliflower salad with this. You could do a whole cauliflower or cauliflower florets. And I'd tie in the same kind of spices, put some turmeric or cumin on the cauliflower. You could serve it with some rocket and things. Any of your favorite vegetarian meals? Like obviously I've done one, but I know things like eggplant are delicious. I'd cut eggplant into strips and roast them. You could do some miso eggplant. I'd do a cauliflower salad. For anyone that watches Farm to Fork, they would have seen last week I did a tabbouleh made out of just really finely chopped broccoli with pomegranates and lots of mint and dill through it. So I would have a big table with broccoli tabbouleh, the pumpkin, some roasted cauliflower salad, and even some eggplant. And you would just be so full on vegetables, and you'd have a very happy belly Christmas afternoon. So I think
Absolutely.
it's one of those things. Whether you're choosing not to eat meat, or even if you're eating meat, this would sit very nicely with all of your other favourite Christmas things on the table.
Definitely. And I know that in our YouTube channel for the Living Free From series, you've actually created a dish, the whole roasted cauliflower. So when you were saying before the roasted cauliflower salad, your whole roasted cauliflower would sit so perfectly next to this.
Yes, yeah. Look, you can have more than one centerpiece thing on the table. Yeah, I think we did a whole roasted miso cauliflower that's on the Living Free From YouTube channel. If anyone's wondering how to make that, again, it's easy. I think it's actually easier to roast vegetables whole than to spend time cutting and peeling and chopping and putting them on a tray. It's actually easier to, like with the cauliflower, just to cook it whole. It cuts out a lot of steps, a lot of mess, and it looks really impressive as well. So there's some other, we've got loads of recipes on the Living Free From YouTube channel if anyone's wanting some other ideas for Christmas as well.
And I know that with the cauliflower one, you actually boiled that first, but you didn't boil your pumpkin first, did you? Because it would go too mushy.
Yeah, pumpkin's got quite a high moisture content already, and the stuffing has a lot of moisture in it as well. The quinoa's obviously steamed. The mushrooms have quite a lot of water in them, and onion as well. So it's keeping the pumpkin moist from the inside. And because we've left the skin on the pumpkin, it creates a little bit of an oven between. It's like a little barrier between the skin and the flesh that kind of naturally steams it. And we give it half an hour with foil on as well. So there's no need to boil it first. It will just go to mush because it does have quite a higher water content compared to the cauliflower, which is a little bit more dense.
Yeah, and
So
because I'm
yeah,
so
every
surprised.
vegetable is going to be a bit different.
And I'm surprised because I thought with the stuffing, when I was watching you create this recipe, I was like, oh, I wonder how that stuffing is going to hold together without like an egg or something. And I was so surprised that when you were cutting it, it held together.
Yeah, the mushrooms really do act as a bit of a binder in this recipe, and you do have to cut everything up quite fine. Like if you have big chunks of onion and whole almonds in here, I think it would tend to crumble a little bit. It's just about cutting everything nice and fine, and in that hour in the oven, it all kind of steams together and will press together quite well.
Perfect. So I guess if we go on to like Christmas Day questions, what does your usual Christmas Day look like?
Usual Christmas Day. This is going to sound really boring, but usually, I can't do a big breakfast on Christmas Day. I just find there's too much food coming. So years ago, I tried to do having smoked salmon and all of that stuff, and I just found it was way too much in the lead up to lunch. We usually go for a run or a long walk with the dogs. I think it's about preparing the belly for the feast that's coming. And for me, I feel good doing that. I live near the beach at Coogee, so we're lucky. I think for me, there's nothing better than walking the dogs and getting out. And there's lots of people around the eastern suburbs of Sydney. They're out on Christmas Day, and there's a nice atmosphere. Everyone's out in their Christmas hats or their Christmas budgie smugglers. Kids have been up since 5 a.m. So by the time I get up at about 8 o'clock, the kids have all got their new boogie boards or their new swimmers, and they're all down the beach. So it's a really nice atmosphere to just get out of the house for an hour with the dogs. And for me, there's nothing better. I think with an Aussie Christmas, it's always hot. So I love going for a swim in the ocean in the morning. Just feel fresh and get ready for the day ahead. Get ready for all the food that's incoming. So that's my Christmas morning. It might sound a bit boring, but walk the dogs, a coffee, get out and see what everyone else is doing and have a swim in the ocean.
I love it. Because, like you said, you've got so much coming up that you don't want to get too full because then comes lunchtime. It's like, I don't know how I'm going to find room to fit everything in.
Yeah, for me, I really look forward to Christmas lunch. So I want to turn up. Usually my brother hosts Christmas. So I want to turn up to my brother's house really looking forward to eating. I don't want to turn up there going, oh, I've already eaten scrambled eggs and
Yeah.
salmon and croissants and I'm kind of full already. So I turn up, ready to roll, hungry. Where's the food when I get there, kind of thing. So just good. For me, I look forward to that.
And what does like the lunch typically look like for you on a Christmas day?
Yeah, I guess we're pretty typically Australian in our Christmas every year. I wouldn't say we have a real tradition that we do the same things, but it always kind of looks the same. We always start with seafood. I'm one of
Mm.
6 kids, so no one is ever running on time. Whether it's one of my brothers is late, or sometimes my mum and dad are late. So I think having some cold seafood for us, it's a great way of we can kind of start picking at prawns and oysters. And if someone's half an hour late, it doesn't matter. They're not missing out on the main meal. My dad's pretty good at shucking oysters, so we usually buy some unshucked oysters a few days before Christmas, so it's not a mad rush right before. So yeah, Dad usually we keep Dad busy shucking oysters. And yeah, prawns and oysters to start, and then we usually have a hot lunch, which is crazy in our weather, but it's usually either ham or turkey or a bit of both, and lots of sides. I think the sides are what changes every year. Like traditionally, we stick to ham,
Mm.
but I think that it's the side salads or side vegetables that people are willing to try new things every year. So it might be the pumpkin this year, or you might have a really lovely glazed carrot recipe, or a broccoli tabbouleh, or a fennel salad, or a peach salad. Or I think the sides are what kind of ties in those main, the big main ticket items on the Christmas table. So every year they kind of change for us. A few years ago, peach salad was big on our Christmas table, but I think this year it might be more roast vegetables that you can eat at kind of room temperature, or even eat them cold and can be prepared before, just to make it really easy.
So does that mean
And
that
then yeah,
you're,
that's it. Sorry.
no, no, you go, you go.
I was going to say, and then it's, then we're typical, we eat lunch about 3 o'clock, quite late, a backyard game of cricket, and then most people tend to start napping about 4 o'clock. And
You're
then
almost
we
doing
wake up
food.
at 6 or 7 and do it again. I think that's pretty standard in Australia, the game of cricket, and then the food coma nap, and then you wake up and you get all the leftovers out again. That's my family. That's how we roll.
Definitely. And so I guess for your Christmas day, your dish would always change because the sides always change. So are you
Yes.
in your family, is everyone like Courtney's definitely bringing this dish this Christmas, or every each Christmas it just changes?
It's a bit of both, really. And I think my whole family loves cooking. So it's, my mum and dad both love cooking. My sisters and my brothers love cooking as well. So we kind of share it around a little bit. But generally, I am in charge of sides and salads. They leave that up to me. And I think they know, because I'm doing lots of work in the lead up to Christmas around food. That
Yeah.
I'm going to kind of bring whatever's on trend for that year. So it does, my role changes every year, but there's one dish that I do every year that they keep requesting, and I do a cured side of salmon that we have as a bit of a starter, or we have it at dinner time as a bit of a starter. And I've done that for about the last 6 years because everyone seems to request it, and I love it because you can prepare it ahead of time. So it's basically, you can buy either fillets or like a side of salmon, and you make
Hmm.
a curing mix around 3 days before Christmas. I love doing it with beetroot. So you grate a raw beetroot, put in a cup of rock salt, half a cup of sugar. You can put a little nip of gin or vodka in there as well, which adds a nice
That's
flavour into the curing mix. It's very Christmassy. And just some picked dill, and you basically mix up that curing mix, coat it all over your salmon, wrap it up, and you just put it in the fridge for 2 days and forget about it. And then Christmas Day, get it out and wipe all the curing mix off, and you can slice the salmon really thin, and it's a psychedelic purple colour, and it's got a really lovely cured kind of silky texture to it. I do that every year, and I do the sides every year, which change. So bit of both. We're a bit traditional, but we're also we change it up as well.
so. And when you wrap the salmon, do you just wrap it up in Glad wrap followed by like a plastic bag over it, or do you
Oh
put it
yeah,
in
well, I
a
just
big?
wrap it in. I try. Look, I'm like everyone. I'm trying to avoid plastic as much as I can this year. Sometimes you just need to use it. There's no other way to really wrap up the salmon without the, because basically what the curing mix does is um, it takes a lot of the moisture out of the salmon. So the reason it's curing the salmon is because it's removing the water content from it, which is giving it a longer shelf life. Which, way back when, before refrigerators, was what that technique was used for. So yeah, just a couple of layers of Glad wrap or cling wrap, put it in a tray, and I just put it in the fridge. And every day, just turn it over so the weight is evenly distributed. It sounds involved, but it's really easy, and it's something you can whip out on Christmas Day. And as I said, you can slice it. You can have it on little pancakes or on bagels, or you can just have it with a really nice fennel salad as a nice little starter. So it's good. It's great to get ahead. Any recipe that you can do ahead of time is what you want to be aiming for, because Christmas Day is always mad. As much as you think you're organised, it's always chaos.
It's
So
always a mad
I love
rush.
things that can be yeah, it always is. And look, as I said, the pumpkin, you can even roast it ahead of time and leave it wrapped up and just reheat it. Because best intentions, Christmas Day, there's always something that happens. And someone's running late or something happens. So I think anything that can be done ahead of time is the way to go.
100%. My mum used to always make this pasta salad, and it used to have like sun-dried tomatoes and olives in it. And so she used to buy everything the day before, and then Christmas morning after we unwrapped all our presents, she would just quickly chuck in the pasta, let it cool down, and add all the ingredients in. But this year she thought, or not this year, but the year it happened, she forgot the mustard seeds. So, and that was like the dressing for it. And she was like, I should have made it the day before because now nothing's open and it's not the same.
Yeah, I know, I know. That's also the thing. The things mentally you make a list. Um, but yeah, so anything you can do ahead of time, whether it's curing salmon or if you're doing a whole roast cauliflower, you could do the boiling process. You could even roast it, and you just can reheat it on the day. It doesn't change anything,
Yeah,
and it just means you're ahead of the game. When those surprises pop up on Christmas Day.
definitely. Do any of your family members actually have intolerances or allergies?
My sister-in-law actually has. She can't eat onion or garlic, which can be tricky with when
Yeah.
you look at things like stuffing. And my niece is vegetarian, but she will eat seafood. Hence why she's the one that hounds me to do the cured salmon every year, because it's one of the only things she can eat, the oysters and the salmon. So she rings me a couple of weeks before Christmas to make sure I'm doing her the cured salmon. So yeah, two out of the family, but it doesn't matter whether it's one person in your family with an intolerance or an allergy or six. It doesn't make it any easier, because it's Christmas and you want everyone to be included. So for me, I think it's easier to try and find ways to navigate to make the meals suitable for everyone, rather than making a separate plate for someone with an allergy. I think there's so many people on the Free From an Allergy community Facebook page that can share ideas with people. And I think that's the best way to go. I know with my sister-in-law, she can't eat onion or garlic, but she's okay with the the flavored oil. So you can get on a Cobram do the flavored onion oil, and they do a flavored garlic oil. So that kind of is a great way of, if you have to use onion in a recipe, with this stuffing, you could just replace the onion with the onion flavored oil, and she would be okay to eat
Yeah.
it. And I'd just add in some extra mushrooms, or you could add in some diced capsicum or something to replace the onion. Um, so yeah, it's tricky, and it's tricky for everyone. Most people that are hosting Christmas, someone's coming to your house, whether it's you or a visitor, that has something they can't eat or an allergy to something. I think it's really quite common these days. Allergies. There's someone in every family, I'd say, that either doesn't want to eat meat, or can't eat meat, or can't eat dairy, or can't eat onion, or their FODMAP. So yeah, I think this obviously today's show is great, and our YouTube recipes, and just even the Facebook chats for people to get ideas on how to find replacements, so everyone's included on the day.
Definitely. Like I even know someone in the community a month ago or so had actually asked that they needed like a low FODMAP breakfast recipe because some of the stuff was really upsetting their stomach. And the amount of people who actually commented and had ideas, I was reading through the comments being like, new recipe idea, new breakfast idea, we're going to try this, going to
Yeah.
try that. Like it was crazy. It's amazing how many different alternatives and different recipes people have tried.
Yeah, and I think that's what cooking's all about. It doesn't. I guess you don't want the focus to be on what people can't have. I think you want the focus to be on what you can have, and that's where the discussion. And that's what's great about food. As I said, I've cooked this vegan roast today, but someone else might go, I really like the look of that, but I'm going to do it with an eggplant. I'm going to buy a massive eggplant and hollow it out and put that stuffing in it. Or someone might say, I'm going to do the different shaped pumpkin and cut a plug out of the top, and have a different shaped pumpkin on there. People can change, the stuffing ideas. I think that's what's the great thing about food. Nothing has to be the same. It's just about giving someone an idea, and then they can go and kind of roll with that and put their own little spin on it. Nothing's
Definitely.
set in stone. But the best thing is to have a discussion and to share the ideas.
Absolutely, because some of our best recipes are ones we've had to actually, they're actual failed attempts, but they actually decided or become one of our best recipes because it was like, oh, I was supposed to use that ingredient, but I thought I'd subbed it with this, and it sort of failed, but it actually hasn't because it's better than what I had thought.
Yeah. Oh God, there's been, I'm sure over the years, so many recipes we cook have probably come from mistakes that have ended up working out better. Everyone's heard the story of et and mess and things getting dropped and still getting served and people loving it better than the original. So yeah, there's no right or wrong with food or with cooking. I think it's just about finding what you like or what ingredients you have, and it's always great. There's always this foods. Cooking's not tricky. It's just about experimenting and getting in and having a go and trying something out. If it doesn't work, it doesn't matter. You might discover something new that someone else hasn't discovered before.
Definitely. It's about getting excited with trying different things, like different taste buds, everything.
Yeah, yeah. And it's, maybe you don't, like for years, I said I hated kiwi fruits. And then all of a sudden, when I was about 22, I ate one and I decided that I did like it. I just said for 22 years I didn't like them because that's what I said when I was a kid. I think it's never too late to rediscover things, even if you haven't eaten them for 20 years. I wouldn't eat oysters growing up. My parents, we have a holiday house near some oyster farms down the south coast, and I flat out refused to eat oysters for about 25 years of my life. And now, if anyone looks at my Instagram page, you'll probably see that I eat them weekly. I love them. I think, as you get older, things change, your taste bud change, and, you're willing to try different things changes as well.
Yeah, definitely. Like my nonna used to, oh, she still makes this eggplant parmigiana. And my cousin was like, I don't like eggplant. So for years, she would never touch it. And then one day, she decided just to have a little bit of a taste test because we all dared her. We're like, we'll give you money if you try this. And she's like, money? Yes. Okay. She tried it, fell in love. Literally every single time she goes to Nonna, she's always like, do you have any eggplant parmigiana in the freezer, Nonna?
Yeah, I know. And that's, as I said, some of us talk ourselves out of not liking ingredients for years, and then it's just in your mind that you don't like it. But sometimes you need to eat it again, you know, to check, because often you do. If everything I said I didn't like as a kid, I now love. So
Yes. Well, my next question, I guess we've answered this. Do you recommend any tips to best cater for someone who has an intolerance, or how do you be a great host? And you were saying before, instead of focusing on things they can't have, focus on things they can have.
yeah. Yeah, and I think, look, it might sound really silly, but just ask people that you have coming over, is there anything you don't eat? Is there anything you can't eat? I think so often if people are afraid, they think, oh, I don't want to cause waves. I don't want to seem difficult. I don't want to tell them that I can't eat dairy or I can't eat this or that. So they don't tell the person cooking, and then the person cooking spent all this time cooking stuff that they can't eat. So I think the first thing of being a good host is just communication. Just saying, please tell me if there's something you can't eat or you don't like eating, because it just saves that awkward moment of someone, sitting there at the table and not being able to eat half of the things. And then, ask them if there's something they love to eat. They might be this, for instance, or like I know with catering for the Sydney Swans, I've got 4 players that are vegan. And I used to do, say if I was doing a Japanese menu, I'd do miso cauliflower. And for 6 months I was cooking all this cauliflower stuff. And then after 6 months, one of the boys coming in, he said, oh, I don't really like cauliflower. And I was like, why didn't you tell me 6 months ago? Cauliflower was my go-to with, vegan recipes, whether it's, trying to make a vegan buffalo wing, or a whole roast, or a cauliflower rice or something. And it was just, he was too afraid to tell me for 6 months that he didn't like cauliflower. So I think the first thing I think everyone just needs to be comfortable about talking about allergies or something they can't eat. So whether you're the host or you're the person with an allergy, just communicate and say, can't eat something, or, I can't eat onion, but I can have some onion oil. If you're making a curry, it's okay to put the onion oil in, or just, I think it's all about just communicating. There's nothing worse than sitting there and not being able to eat things, or someone that's spent time cooking it thinking that people are going to love it and then they can't eat it. So I think that's all it is. Communication is the best thing about being a host, and asking the question.
Absolutely. Well, I guess my next question was, are you a dessert or a savory dish person? So in your household, are they more like, okay, Courtney, you're going to be doing the savory, or Courtney, you've got to do a Christmas dessert recipe, or are you both?
Oh, I'm 100%. I am on the savouries. Where my mum makes a pudding every year. Every year she says she's not making a pudding because it stresses her out. But my mum makes the best Christmas pudding, and I love Christmas pudding. So no, I'm always on savouries. I'm always on the cured side of salmon, and I'm always on the vegetables sides or salads. So yeah, no, we always have mum's Christmas pudding usually as dessert. I like simple things at Christmas. I love, we often just have some big bowls of cherries on the table.
Oh,
I'm not a big fan of creamy desserts. I'm probably going to upset a lot of people here. I am not a fan of trifle. I find it really weird. Cake
I'm the
and
same.
custard and jelly. So yeah, I love the savoury side of Christmas. I absolutely adore my mum's Christmas pudding. My nan used to make a really good Christmas cake as well that I love. But I'm happy with, big bowl of cherries or some mangoes or some fresh fruit. Might sound boring, but that's all I want after a big Christmas feast. I'm not a fan of. My family still has them. Everyone else in my family loves trifle and loves pavlova, but I'm just not into it.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm the exact same. I'm not a big fan of like pavlova. Sometimes we do like a chocolate ripple cake. I'm still not a big fan. I'm like, give me cherries or give me mangoes.
I'm maybe it's because I know we're having another meal in 3 hours after the food coma nap happened. But I think in Australia we have, especially this time of year, we have the best summer fruits. Nectarines, peaches, mangoes, passion fruits, all of that stuff. Cherries in particular, a big bowl of chilled cherries. I'm happy, very happy with that.
Yes. Another question was, what is your favorite ingredient to use on Christmas Day?
Oh, that's a tough one because I do love all of it. Do you know what? I think if anyone's, I'm thinking back over all the years. I don't know if it's so much of an ingredient, but I do love a pomegranate jewel put onto recipes. I think I guess Christmas is all about the glitz and glitter and tinsel on the trees, and I think our food is a little bit similar. We love jazzing up food and making it look Christmassy, and I think you could put some pomegranate jewels onto this pumpkin, or pomegranate onto your whole roast cauliflower, or pomegranate onto your roast eggplant, and it just makes it look Christmassy. So there we go. A pomegranate jewel can make anything look Christmassy, I say.
Do you have actually any tips how you cut a pomegranate? Because I know when I do it, you should see I've got pink going everywhere. I stain benches trying to do it.
Yeah, I know. Look, for years I've seen people on TV and they love bashing it with a spoon, but I find that goes everywhere. Um, with a pomegranate, I always cut it down, so not from the top to bottom, from around the side, but don't cut
Ah,
all the way through because you're going to cut a lot of the seeds. So I just cut about 2 centimeters in and roll it around as if you're cutting an avocado that's got a seed in it, but there's no seed in it. And then you can
yep.
actually click it apart. I get a big stainless steel bowl full of water and I put the pomegranate. I think I've got one in my fridge. Let me just have a look because I did use one the other day. Tis the season. So I cut it in half, and then and then I kind of put it upside down like this and immerse it in the water and just push the seeds out. And the little
Oh,
kernels of pomegranates actually just will.
come straight
I'll
out.
come around. Yeah. So I know it's getting really close up here. But so rather than bashing it, the pomegranate seeds actually just, as if you're kind of taking the kernels off corn, you can just
Ah,
pick them off. Even in a white linen shirt, you could do this. Um, so I do this for two reasons into a bowl of white water. I just put it under the water and press it out and then just kind of peel off the kernels of pomegranate seeds. The water does two things. It stops the pomegranate splattering everywhere, but also the water will, these little white bits of like membrane of the pomegranate will float to the top of the water. So the seeds will sink and the white membrane and those little bits that are a bit kind of bitey to eat will float to the top. You can skim them off with a sieve and then just drain your pomegranate seeds and they're ready to go. It's
oh my
the
God.
cleanest, most efficient way to do a pomegranate. If you want to bash it like everyone does on the TV, you can, but it goes everywhere. And I don't think it's the best way to do it. Some TV chef years ago just did it and then everyone follows suit. This is a much more boring way of doing it. If you're having a bad Christmas morning, I suggest whacking it with a spoon and getting some frustration out. But yeah, this is the best way to do it because they do just kind of, you can just
Oh,
gently
wow.
ease them out. The water also washes a bit of, sometimes if you put pomegranate straight onto something, it bleeds a little bit.
Yeah.
By putting them in the water, it washes a bit of that excess juice off them and it gives you a really nice clean pomegranate jewel on the top of whatever recipe you're using them on. But I love them.
You've
Really
actually
nice
just
and
made me
sweet
want to actually
color.
go and try that, Courtney. That is on my to-do list now. Before Christmas Day, I'm going to nail how to like open up a pomegranate. So then like Christmas Day comes and if I'm wearing something white, it doesn't go everywhere.
I feel like I need to record a how-to video on pomegranates after this today, but yeah,
Yes.
but I love them. sweet and sour. You can put them in drinks, in cocktails, on your food, in
Yeah,
salads, in loads of things. They're really yummy. That's my favourite
definitely.
ingredient there, pomegranate.
Perfect. If we go into substitutes, so what is your favorite substitute for a typical roast lamb if you're vegan? Would it be the dish you have now, the pumpkin?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think with a roast lamb, people love putting a whole roast lamb on the table and pulling it apart and all of that. You can still do all of that with this. I have to. It's in front of me. I'd be in trouble if I didn't say this would be the best replacement for it. But you still get to do all that. You can undo the string, carve it at the table, pour over whatever sauce you want to use on it. So you still, that's half the fun of doing a whole roast piece of meat in the oven, or a chicken or a lamb. Um, Definitely, yeah. This has got, and then, for me, lamb, I love using Middle Eastern spices, and we've got the cinnamon and the cumin in this recipe. Lamb goes really well with, often a bit of dried fruit with lamb is nice. Whether you're doing a tagine, you'd put some apricots in, and we've got those similar flavors in this. So definitely, if someone has just chosen to go vegan in the last year or two and you're trying to look for an alternative, then this is it here.
Yeah.
But as I said, if you wanted to do this with, I've seen some really big eggplants in at Coles. You could just cut an eggplant down the middle, scoop out the flesh. I'd put a little bit of oil on the inside and put your stuffing in. You could do it with an eggplant instead. If you wanted to do this with a whole cauliflower, I wouldn't suggest trying to stuff it. But you could use the same. You could use the same flavors. I would just kind of deconstruct it a bit. I'd do the whole roast cauliflower, give it its 5 minutes in boiling water, rub the cinnamon, cumin, and some olive oil all on the outside of the cauliflower, and then I just serve the stuffing mix underneath the whole cauliflower. I put a bed of the stuffing mix, put the cauliflower on the table, and people could cut big wedges of it. It's just every vegetable is going to be a little bit different, but you could still. I know Lebanese stuff zucchinis in recipes. You could do it. It's probably a little bit fiddly with this. But yeah, if you can hollow out a vegetable, you could use this stuffing mixture in it.
Perfect. What about some other ideas for vegan sauces to serve with it? So I know you said you had your tahini one. Would you recommend another one such as, I know, more like a yogurty one that you could do vegan somehow?
Oh yeah, like you could just put like a coconut yogurt onto this if you wanted to. That's this like, if starting on a scale of 1 to 10 of difficulties with vegan sauces, just a dollop of coconut yogurt is like number one on the scale of easiness. If you wanted to put some tahini into that coconut yogurt, then you could. If you wanted to you could flavor the coconut yogurt with anything, whether it's dill or lemon or tahini, or some ground cumin seeds or curry powder or anything. You could, start with a coconut yogurt. For anyone that's looked at my page, I've got on my Instagram page, I've made a mayonnaise out of macadamias. So you basically boil macadamia nuts in water until they go really soft. And then I blend the macadamia nuts in a high-speed blender with some water. You could put garlic in it, but I think in mine it's just literally water, some lemon juice, and a little bit of maple syrup. And you blend it and it goes thick, like a really creamy, lovely macadamia mayonnaise. You could do the same with cashews. I'm sure on my Instagram there is a cashew cream, which is basically the same. Soak raw cashews in boiling water. You could add in a tablespoon of tahini, some apple cider vinegar, and some maple syrup and salt, and you just blitz it, and it will go like a really lovely, creamy cashew dressing. It's like, the thing is, I know we're making it vegan, but it's way nicer than mayonnaise anyway. Even if you can eat mayonnaise, I would highly recommend doing a nut-based sauce or mayonnaise. I also did. I'm just trying to think. When I was in hot quarantine, it was from filming Farm to Fork. I made a cashew hollandaise on Farm to Fork this year that will be coming up on an episode soon. So that is basically soaked cashews, and I've put in some nutritional yeast, which gives it like a really nice, like umami cheesy flavor, but it's not cheese. And there's some turmeric and apple cider vinegar in that, and you blend it, and it goes a really lovely creamy yellow color. And it tastes a little bit like hollandaise, and you can use it as you would a hollandaise, but it's all vegan.
And when you
I've got
are
loads
boiling,
more. I could keep rattling off more. Even I do a really nice dressing that's just based with a whole tomato that you just run through a box grater. So get a plate and a couple of whole ripe tomatoes and run them through the thickest side of your box grater, and you'll get
yeah,
like a fresh tomato sauce. And into that you can put a little bit of harissa, some grated raw garlic, some olive oil and sea salt, and it's a delicious, really fresh, like slightly spicy tomato sauce that you could serve with this as well if you didn't want creamy. I'll stop
yeah.
there. I could keep going.
I love it. Well, we're nearly out of time, so I'll just finish off with two other questions.
Yeah.
One was, what is, oh no, we've already said that, sorry. This was the one I wanted to ask you. Have you made a gingerbread house before? And if so, have you ever tried a gluten-free one?
I will confess I have never attempted. I was given one. I will never. The thing is about a gingerbread, I was given one when I was about 9 years old by my auntie, my dad's sister. She's no longer with us. She was in hospital. She was really sick. And I will never ever forget being given a gingerbread house by my auntie. It's something, I'm going to be 41 soon. I've never forgotten it. I thought it was the greatest gift I was ever given. It was filled with lollies on the inside, and it was all wrapped in cellophane. So while I've never made one, um, I could not recommend enough. If you've got to buy a gift for a child this year, you can either make it with them or give them one. For me, I've never forgotten it. But I am not. I did woodwork at school. You would think I would be quite handy at making one, but I've never attempted. Um, and I haven't made a gluten free one, but I feel like gluten free flour. The gluten free flour that we have in the supermarket it's such a good substitute for regular flour. I couldn't see why it wouldn't work. Because basically with a gingerbread, I've made gingerbread dough before, but not into a house. But basically with the biscuits, you make it and it still feels soft when it comes out of the oven, and as it sits at room temperature, it firms up. So I can't imagine why the gluten-free flour wouldn't do the same thing. But maybe
Definitely.
again, all for discussion. Maybe someone on the Facebook page has done it, and they would want to send in how their attempts went. They could tell us maybe
Definitely.
if it works or not.
Well, I mean, I've got one last question. It's actually about gluten-free as well, so it's a nice segue into this. A
Yeah.
substitute flour in a gluten-free Christmas pudding. Do you think that a gluten-free flour would just work just as good? And that's what you were saying, the gluten-free substitute that you find at the supermarkets is a good one.
Yeah, I think that they definitely would. I mean, a fruit cake or a pudding is about 90% fruit, 5% booze, and about 5%. I think that I'm sure there's some egg, sugar, and flour in there, but it's actually quite dense with fruit. So I know with my mum's Christmas pudding, she actually uses some bread. It's a really old recipe. She uses some breadcrumbs in there, which I'm sure she
Oh,
soaks them and it acts as a bit of a flour or a binder in her pudding. So I'm imagining you could do the same thing with gluten-free bread that's dried out and put into breadcrumbs and use that. If anyone's got a really old school recipe like my mum, the gluten-free bread can be used in the pudding recipe. If you found that you didn't like the gluten-free flour, I know you could use the gluten-free bread as a breadcrumb in the pudding, and it would definitely work.
perfect.
More than one way to skin a cat. Definitely more than one way to make a gluten-free pudding. But yeah, that would be my suggestion. I would find that breadcrumbs might be a more kind of unnoticeable substitute in that recipe.
Definitely. Well,
You're
that's all
eating
we
the
have time
pomegranate
for
so
today.
quickly.
You're making me want some pomegranate now. I'm going to go to the market
It's so
after this to
good.
go grab myself one. Thank you so much for your time today, Courtney. As always, it was a pleasure. I love having these conversations with you. You just have a wealth of knowledge. If you haven't seen it yet, again, go to the content library and Courtney actually shows you how she creates this recipe. Because for me personally, I was like, how do you tie the rope and everything and keep it together? She shows you how to do all that. So check out the content library. And yeah, if you don't follow Courtney, make sure you do. How can people find you on Instagram? Is it Courtney?
Yeah, it's just my name, Courtney Roulston. Um, and the same on Facebook. There's no tricks. It's just at Courtney Roulston. And I really do try and share lots of gluten-free, vegan, dairy-free recipes on there as well. And it's not all sponsored content like a lot of Instagram is this day. I'm cooking every day with Coles or with the Farm to Fork shows. So I love sharing recipes. So if anyone wants to find some new recipes, they can follow along on there.
Thank you so much, Courtney.
No worries. I've had a great time. Merry Christmas, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.